Welcome to our /malicious compliance, where a boss tells his worker to quit, then when he does, he instantly regrets it. I'm Wire93, I hope you enjoy my content. If you enjoy, don't forget to like and subscribe because I post a new video every 2 days. Once this channel reaches 1,500 subscribers, I will be starting monthly giveaways, so don't miss out. Now let's get into the stories. Our first story was posted by you/IntrepidShe. They refused me an office, I complied, they regretted it. I got my first, grown-up, job while I was finishing my bachelor's degree. I was just getting started in a highly technical and emerging field. Very few people back then were doing this kind of work, and I seemed to have an aptitude for it, which is probably why I got a job before I had any credentials. The department I was hired for was brand new and had the potential to take customers from other departments, while also generating net new business. Interestingly, the other departments had been offered the opportunity to start the service themselves but refused, even actively trying to prevent it from happening. That's the reason I ended up in a malicious compliance situation. The leaders of all the other departments conspired to prevent me from getting an office. I didn't understand at first because at that age I didn't imagine professionals did petty, immature things. When I realized what was happening, I knew they'd get exposed if I went along with it. So, I happily did my job wherever I could find a place, which often ended up being in the mailroom, where lots of people would notice. I hoped maybe the leaders would start to feel guilty, or annoyed and change their minds. Or they'd be caught by their bosses. Either way, problem solved for me without a fight. Little did I know how well it would go. I started to be well liked by a lot of the leaders because I helped them with their computers. There was one leader who still inexplicably hated me. I never spoke with him, not even one word. But he continued to insist I did not need an office. I wasn't even the level of a secretary, according to him, which I took to be a dig at my lack of a degree. I heard about him saying that from a friend who was in the meeting when they talked about changing their minds. It's too bad for them they didn't change their minds, because the president came through the mailroom multiple times and finally stopped, clearly annoyed. "Why don't you work in your office?" That was my golden moment. I had complied politely with not having an office. I sweetly told the president, "I don't have an office." "What? Why not?" "There isn't room. No space available." "According to whom?" "Mr. So-and-so." "But you've been working here for, 3 months? They could have found space for you by now." Oh, the president was beet red at that point. I just smiled and said my understanding is there is no space. The president literally stomped upstairs to the offices of Mr. So-and-so. I distinctly heard the yelling from downstairs. People outside probably heard it. The president came and brought me upstairs to the conference room where the leaders were all seated looking down. There was a pile of keys on the table. I was afraid at that point. Was she having me pick someone's office to take? While that might have been sweet revenge, it wouldn't have been good for my working relationships with any of them. But no. She handed me a key to the conference room and said, "This is your office." She scooped up the rest of the keys, which I learned later were all their copies of the key to the conference room, and said, "Your office is the largest office on campus. Even bigger than mine. Enjoy." And she walked out. That was probably the best drop-the-mic moment I've ever seen in my life. And the story ends with my compliance not only winning me that office, but all the other leaders, except Mr. So-and-so, becoming great colleagues. Edit follow-up. I mentioned in the comments there was another chapter to this story that I guess sort of puts a bow on it. One sunny day about 6 months later, Mr. So-and-so passed me on the stairs outside the building. I was leaving and said good morning to him. We were the only 2 people, or so I thought. I wouldn't pass by a coworker like that without a polite greeting. I was in my office quietly analyzing some data about an hour later when once again a furiously red-faced president stormed into my office. I swear she was 12 feet tall in her anger. She demanded, "What is going on between you and Mr. So-and-so?" My heart was racing at probably 150 beats per minute, and I couldn't comprehend her question. "What do you mean, what's going on? I have no idea what you're talking about." I started to imagine she was accusing me of having a relationship with a man. "And just, you." She said she wanted to know why he just said what he said about me. I was flummoxed. "I'm sorry, I still have no idea what you're talking about. I never have more than a greeting to say good morning worth of conversation with Mr. So-and-so. I can't think of anything whatsoever he would have to say about me." She told me that my sibling had just burst into her office raging about Mr. So-and-so. Turns out when I walked by him and continued on, the next person he encountered was my sibling, but he didn't know that. We both worked for the same company, but I was married, and we had different last names. If he bothered to get to know me at all, he would have known that. He walked right up to my sibling and said, "There goes AB with her head up her A." He assumed, I guess, that everyone else hated me too. He barely knew my brother but felt comfortable saying that. So, my brother walked right into the president's office, interrupting a meeting, and repeated what Mr. So-and-so said. The president assumed I was aware. But my brother hadn't gotten to me yet. And I didn't realize just how much Mr. So-and-so hated me. I told the president, I genuinely didn't believe it was really about me. It couldn't be because we never spoke. It had to be about what I represented, which was a major change to the organization. She walked to his office. Then more yelling ensued. Pretty soon they were back in my office. He apologized and I repeated what I told the president, that I didn't believe it was really about me. Mr. So-and-so agreed. Later on, I had a project with him, and he started to trust me. We ended up being able to work together with no further issues. The next one was posted by you/the_anecdotist135. Boss says I should quit because I like spending time on hobbies, so I did. I was working for a startup engineering firm working as a piping design engineer. But since it was a startup firm, we didn't have a lot of manpower, and the ones we had weren't as qualified either. I was one of the very few qualified enough to handle a team of my own. The boss trusted me with almost everything. I was like the second in command after the boss only because I was managing a lot of things on the side as a volunteer basis. Things like paycheck balancing, client meetings, quality assurance, documentation, and other stuff which he should have hired someone else to do. I was good at it, and he took full advantage of it by giving me things to do that never was under my job description. One day he had this bright idea that we should revamp our website to attract more clients. And he gave this project to his nephew who just graduated from college as a developer of sorts. After a week or so the nephew came up with the first draft of the website, and the boss was fairly disappointed as it didn't look anywhere near to what he expected. He then called me in and asked me if I knew anything about website design. At that time, I was very much interested on UI/UX and was doing an online course to learn about it more. So, I told him that I'll see what I can do. I spent the next week full making a proper information accurate, wireframes and color guidelines that the nephew could pick up and build the website from scratch. In the end the website looked futuristic, and the boss was pretty happy. But during the week my other responsibilities were put in a backlog, and it just kept piling on. I knew I would be able to cover it once I'm done with the website, and didn't pay too much attention to it. The next week my boss caught up with backlog and called me into his cabin. He started yelling at me for all the responsibilities that I didn't attend to. I calmly told him that I was working on the website, and it's not a big deal. told him that I would clear it out as soon as possible. But he wasn't happy. He asked me why I spent so much time doing something that isn't even my responsibility. I told him that I was learning about UI/UX and was pretty much interested to learn more. I obviously never thought about perusing it as a career because frankly I was a mechanical engineer by qualification and didn't think jumping to IT would be easy. The boss snapped and told me that I should quit and pursue my hobby as a living. He said that only then I will understand how lucky I am to have a job that pays. I kind of got offended because 1. He doesn't even pay me the worth of things I do for the company, and 2. He knew I could cover and yet took this as an opportunity to discipline me. I stepped out of this cabin, went to my desk and put in my resignation and went home. He called me a couple of times, asked me to revoke my resignation, and then made other people from the organization call me to convince me to come back. I wasn't having it at all. It's been 2 years now. I decided to pursue UI/UX as a career now and am working as a product designer in one of the biggest organizations in the country with a pay that's almost 300% more than what I was getting as a mechanical engineer. Update. To all the people who wanted to know the company status today, the company was shut down because they had to pay a huge penalty for not being able to deliver the last project I was handling. Then COVID hit, and they had to reduce pay for all the other staff, which led to people leaving. Eventually the company went bankrupt for not being able to keep up financially after COVID. The last story comes from you/Lady Blade War Angel. My cousin thought she was being so clever. It did not work out for her. So, here's a malicious compliance story that made my family laugh for years, and still does. A good few years back, I was about 24 to 25 years old. I went to Cyprus with my grandparents to visit relatives. My grandparents originally came from there and moved to the UK when they were like 16. My cousin, 14 female, also came along. Now it's important to mention that we're Greek Cypriots. Certain things are expected when we visit relatives, such as helping out with things if we can and offering our help for whatever our hosts might be doing. It's also worth mentioning that I have a sight problem, but I'm extremely independent in spite of it. So, we were visiting relatives, and every time I offered to help out, either taking dishes into the kitchen, bringing them out of the kitchen, washing up, even getting a glass of water, I kept being told to sit down, they could handle it. I didn't understand why, as I'm perfectly capable. I thought it might be to do with my eyes. One day we were visiting a great auntie of ours, who owns a little summer home by the sea, not too far from where we were staying. Now when we visit this auntie, I always go swimming. She's literally not even a couple of minutes away from the sea. Now as I went to offer my help to my great-aunt, I hear my 14-year-old cousin talking to her in Greek. Another important note, I can't string together a sentence in Greek. My father is English and had something against us speaking Greek. But although I'm not a fluent speaker, I can read, write, and understand Greek. My family doesn't know this. They assume that because I'm not a fluent speaker, that they can basically hide their conversations between other people. My cousin was telling my great-aunt how clumsy I am, how stupid I am, how I'm a little soft in the head. She was saying it in Greek. She thought I couldn't understand her. But I knew exactly what she was saying, even if I couldn't string sentences together myself. I knew what she was saying about me. I added 2 and 2 together, and realized my cousin was very obviously telling all my relatives this. She did it, because she thought she'd get praised if she helped bring out the food without me. I was angry, but I knew the perfect revenge. We ate lunch, and after we were finished eating, my great-aunt asked my cousin for her help to take the dishes in, and do the washing up, as she'd been on her feet most of the morning, preparing the food. My cousin looked at me, knowing my great-aunt couldn't speak English, and said, "Hey OP, Auntie needs help taking the plates in and doing the washing up. Because now, she was bored, and expected to run off to the beach and leave me doing the hard work of cleaning up after. So, I looked at her and said, "But I'm too stupid and clumsy, and soft in the head, to help Auntie out. Besides, she asked for your help. Not mine." She went pale, realizing I knew what she'd said. But she doubled down. "I helped bring everything out. You could help take it all in." I laughed at her, picked up the book I'd brought with me, and got up from the table. Grabbed the towel I'd brought with me and went to walk off. My cousin started whining to my grandparents that I wasn't helping her. My grandmother looked at her and said, "You made your bed. Now you lie in it. Your cousin caught you lying about her, and now she can go to the beach, while you help your aunt." My cousin went completely white then. So, I went to the beach. Swam for 30 minutes, then chilled out on a deck chair, reading my book under the shade of a nice umbrella. By the time my grandparents called to me that we were heading home, my cousin had spent all of it helping to wash up, and dry things, and put them away. She hadn't gotten to be lazy and go to the beach, to enjoy the sea. I could have helped her. I simply decided that I wouldn't, as she never earned my help. Since then, every time we went to a relative's home, and she was asked to help, I watched with a smirk on my face. To this day, I'm 37 this year, I still won't help her. She made out I was incapable to people. So now she suffers the consequences. It's the malicious compliance that keeps on giving to me. Answers to some common questions. 1. I was born with congenital cataracts, and I'm 85% blind. 2. This didn't actually start out as something to carry on for years. I don't actually carry it on myself either. It started out as a consequences for her actions type lesson. The family picked it up, because she wouldn't admit to the lie, and no one liked her lying. They don't actually make her do extra chores when I'm not there, as the whole thing started because she said I was incapable, so the family basically told her she had to help out her incapable cousin. 3. The family carried it on until this point, because she refuses to admit to the lie. To this day, over a decade later, she still says that I'm incapable, clumsy, soft in the head, to any relatives that will listen. She's now a full-grown adult, who refuses to let go of the lie, so the family has kept up her narrative, because she won't let it go. 4. Some people have asked if my grandmother knew what was going on before I confronted my cousin. She did not. After I caught her lying about me, and used her words against her, my grandmother straight away asked my great-aunt, in front of us both, if my cousin had said that. My great-aunt confirmed it, as she didn't know my cousin was actually lying. I'd already put 2 and 2 together, and realized this was probably what my cousin had been doing with everyone we visited. My grandmother was one of 10 siblings that made it to adulthood, and my grandfather was one of 6 siblings that made it to adulthood. We visited a lot of relatives. So once my grandmother found out my cousin had done this at my great-aunt's, my grandmother dug around and found out what I'd already guessed. When my grandmother asked exactly why she thought that it was okay to do this, she doubled down, and basically claimed it was true. So my grandmother told our relatives that this was absolutely not true. She also told them that as my cousin refused to admit to the lie, that they should treat her as the only capable one when I was there. If she wants to lie about her family, my grandmother asked they act towards her, as if the lie were true. If I was incapable, then I couldn't possibly help out, but my cousin was not incapable, she'd be required to do the stuff they normally ask of me. Please don't get me wrong. She wasn't asked to do anything over the top, like cleaning hunted kills, paving driveways, or herding cattle. She was asked to wash dishes, carry dishes in and out of the kitchen, drying and putting away clean dishes. Simple things asked of anyone. They just made a point of only asking her when I was there, because of her refusal to admit to the lie. She's 24 to 25 years old now, with her own place. But she still goes around telling people the same lie about me. My grandparents didn't know about it until I confronted her with it. They just made a reactionary choice when they found out what she was doing. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Once this channel reaches 1,500 subscribers, I will be starting giveaways, so don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Wire93, and I hope you have a great day, you beautiful people.